The New Norm is brought to you by Winning at Home. I'm Steve Norman. Welcome to The New Norm. Our producer, James, just let me know that this is episode 100, so it's kind of fun to mark that particular milestone. And there are seasons in life where it's fun to celebrate doing something that you hadn't done before, hitting a mark that you didn't know that you would hit. And there are people in my life who are runners, and people who are hardcore runners, they're always looking for the next challenge. They're like, man, this is an adrenaline rush. I'm always looking for a new race or a new distance or a new time. Now, I'm not a runner. I wish I was. I have done it in the past. It is not pretty. In fact, when I was training for my first marathon, I was getting into some of the longer distance runs and was having some pain in my knee, and I meant to go see a doctor, and he said, hey, Steve, you do understand that you don't have the ideal body type for this type of running. And I was like, what exactly are you trying to say? I think that was his polite way of saying, there are other cardio endeavors that you should probably consider pursuing. We had completed another marathon for our church charity team. We were raising money for clean water in Kenya. And after that, after I'd completed the Disney Marathon, I had an opportunity to go to my son's kindergarten class. And I was telling them some of the things that we did to kind of help other people. And I told them about the race, and I brought my Disney Marathon medal, and I was showing it to the kids. And if you ever want to be humbled, try to brag about your achievements to a bunch of 6-year-olds, because this one kid in the back raised his hand. He goes, I got a question. I go, yeah. He goes, that race that you were in. I go, yeah. He goes, did you win? And I was like, no, but I finished. It's kind of a big deal. He was not impressed. Lately, I have been going through a couple different books in the Bible. I just finished the book of Numbers, and there's a pretty amazing picture about a runner in the book of Numbers. And it made me think about the whole idea of people who are running in the scriptures. And so I want to zoom in. There are dozens of examples to choose from, but from today, I just want to focus on three runners and lessons that we can learn from them. Number 16 includes a story about a group of people in Israel who were frustrated with Moses' leadership. And they're like, we don't know who elected this clown. We think we could lead this people as good, if not better. And God publicly disciplined them, in fact, pretty violently destroyed them in front of the whole community, just to remind them that he's in charge and he picked the people that he wanted to shepherd them through their time in the wilderness. And so after that event, it's called Korah's rebellion. So after Korah and his followers were destroyed, we read this in verse 41, number 16. The next day, the whole Israelite community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. You have killed the Lord's people, they said, which isn't true at all. But when the assembly gathered in opposition to Moses and Aaron and turned towards a tent of meeting, suddenly the cloud covered it. The cloud was a symbol of God's presence. And the glory of the Lord appeared. And then Moses and Aaron went to the front of the tent of meeting. And the Lord said to Moses, get away from this assembly. Like, walk away from this people so that I can put an end to them at once. And they fell face down. Then Moses said to Aaron, take your censer and put incense in it, along with burning coals from the altar, and hurry to the assembly to make atonement for them. Making atonement is to kind of beg God for mercy on behalf of the people who have done wrong. He says, wrath has come out from the Lord and the plague has started. So Aaron did as Moses said and ran into the midst of the assembly. The plague had already started among the people, but Aaron offered the incense and made atonement for them. He stood between the living and the dead and offered the incense, and the plague stopped. I love this image. Aaron sprinting from the altar to the middle of the assembly. And it's almost like this wave of plague and destruction was sweeping through these tribes. All the tribes were kind of camped in a square around the center tent of meeting, the tabernacle, where the altar was. And as this plague is sweeping over them, Aaron runs to the middle. I love that line. It says he stands between the living and the dead and offered the sacrifice of incense to be able to say, God, have mercy on these people who have made horrible life choices, who are already experiencing judgment, and I pray that you would forgive them. So when he runs into the middle of the assembly, he is running to redeem them from judgment. It's like he's trying to pull people who are suffering from smoke inhalation out of a burning building. He's being the first responder spiritually to try to save them from themselves. Time is of the essence, so he is running. We have another example in 2 Samuel 18, verses 19 through 28. Backstory here. David in many ways has been a brilliant king, but he's been a really bad father to his adult kids. And part of that failure to lead them well has led in one of his sons, Absalom, leading a very public revolt against David. And because Absalom has a lot of influence in the city of Jerusalem, David actually has to flee with his kind of immediate staff, his inner circle, and his family. He's got to flee from Jerusalem all the way to the other side of the Jordan to try to save their lives while this civil war unfolds. And eventually there's a battle on the east side of Jordan, and David's commander, Joab, goes up against Absalom and his army, and the good news is Joab is victorious. The bad news is Absalom, David's son, dies in that battle. And when it was done, it says, Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok, said to Joab, "Let me run and take the news to the king that the Lord has vindicated him by delivering him from the hand of his enemies." Joab told him, "You are not the one to take the news today. You may take the news another time. You must not do so today because the king's son is dead." Then Joab said to a Cushite, kind of like an unknown anonymous servant, "Go tell the king what you have seen." The Cushite bowed down before Joab and ran off. Ahimaaz, son of Zadok, said again to Joab, "Come what may, please let me run behind the Cushite." But Joab replied, "My son, why do you want to go? You don't have any news that will bring you a reward." And he said, "Come what may, I want to run." So Joab said, "Run." Then Ahimaaz ran by way of the plain and outran the Cushite. When David was sitting between the inner and outer gates, the watchman went up to the roof of the gateway by the wall. As he looked out, he saw a man running alone. The watchman called out to the king and reported it. The king said, "If he is alone, he must have good news." And the runner came closer and closer. Then the watchman saw another runner, and he called down to the gatekeeper, "Look, another man running alone." The king said, "He must be bringing good news too." And the watchman said, "It seems to me that the first one runs like Ahimaaz, son of Zadok." I love that they could pick out that guy's gait, like they could identify him by his stride from yards away. "He's a good man," the king said. "He comes with good news." Then Ahimaaz called out to the king, "All is well." He bowed down before the king with his face to the ground and said, "Praise be to the Lord your God. He has delivered up those who had lifted up their hands against my lord the king." Now again, the Cushite, who comes up later, tells the rest of the story, which unfortunately breaks David's heart because it includes the loss of his son. But Ahimaaz is running because he's got good news. He wants to let the king and everybody who is with the king know that they have been rescued from an immediate physical threat. There's good news. It's like that danger that we've all been running from, that's been the source of crippling anxiety. That threat has ceased. That has ended. The word in the scripture, the Greek word that often gets translated gospel, literally means good news. So Ahimaaz is coming with good news. The war's over. We're safe. Aaron came running with good news. There's a chance to be forgiven, for the plague to stop, for us to be redeemed to right relationship with God. That was good news. And then there's one more story that you might be familiar with. This is in Luke chapter 15. It doesn't record an actual historical incident, but it's a parable that Jesus talks about a father who had two sons and about how the younger son got together all he had and set off for a distant country and wasted all of his money in wild living. Verse 14 in Luke 15 says, "After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in the whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country who sent him to his fields to feed pigs." Which, again, in Jewish culture, you're not supposed to have contact with pigs. So to work among pigs and then to be jealous of the food that the pigs are eating is like an ultimate picture of how far he's fallen. And when he came to his senses, he said, "How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare? And here I am, starving to death. I'll set out and go back to my father and say to him, 'Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants.' So he got up and went to his father." And then here's the line I love. "While he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him, and he ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him." So he runs to eliminate any doubt in his son's mind that he still cares. that he's still loved unconditionally, that there's still a place for him at the table, that there's still a home for him to come back to. He runs to declare that there's zero hesitation in his mind about his desire to restore that relationship. And what I love about these 3 episodes is that each of them give us a snapshot of Christ as well. That Jesus is a high priest like Aaron. He runs to intervene in the plague, to stop spiritual death from sweeping over humanity. Jesus runs to those of us who have been afraid or kind of paralyzed by anxiety to let us know that we've been set free, that we're going to live to see another day. Jesus runs like the father in the story of the lost son to restore us to relationship to himself when we've been drowning in shame, when we've been doubting our worthiness or our significance or our identity in his eyes. There's a great line that gets quoted by Paul in the New Testament that's actually pulled from the prophet Isaiah that says this: "How beautiful on the mountains are the feet of those who bring good news, who proclaim peace, who bring good tidings, who proclaim salvation, who say to Zion," or Jerusalem, "Your God reigns." I love it. Ahimaaz, he's got beautiful feet because he's bringing peace. And Father in Luke 15, he's got beautiful feet because he's bringing good tidings. Aaron, he's got beautiful feet because he is proclaiming salvation, and Christ brings all of those to us. It's like, could you imagine Jesus running into the midst of whatever circumstances you're in today to proclaim peace, to proclaim good news, to proclaim salvation? That's the hope that we have in him. And as we trust him, as we seek him, as we surrender to him, we become runners too. We run, bringing light into dark places, hope into scary places, truth into murky places. And so I guess the 2 questions I have for you today is where do you need Jesus to run to you today? And where might Christ be inviting you to run, to join him, to bring peace and hope and salvation into the lives of those who desperately need it? The New Norm is produced and distributed by Winning at Home. Winning at Home is a faith-based nonprofit committed to making individuals, couples, and families stronger through counseling. For more information, visit winningathome.com. I'm your host, Steve Norman. Thanks for listening.